Feet of the Moon, Chapter 2, Sunday, May 10th. John was surprised to find Alex driving the claver box to White Birch. You driving Sundays now? He asked as he boarded the bus. Pick up extra cash, Alex replied. I'll be home before Matt leaves. John nodded and took his seat. It was nice of Alex to give the family some time alone with Matt, especially since Matt had never much liked him. Smart of Alex, John thought, and then, out of nowhere, he could hear Julie saying, But my IQ is higher than his. John grinned. Julie had loved her big brother, but they fought all the time. One day when John and Julie were alone, she told him that she had overheard her parents talking about their kids and what would become of them. Carlos, they thought, would either end up in jail or in the military. Fortunately for everyone, he chose the military. Her parents thought her older sister, Brianna, might become a nun. Julie knew better. Bri was devout, but she loved babies and wanted to have a dozen or more. Alex, everyone knew, would go to college and become somebody important. Their dad might grumble about him, but even he knew Alex was destined for greatness. That left Julie, the youngest. It was then she heard her father say, Don't forget, her IQ is even higher than Alex's. But her mother replied, We'll find an older man for her, one that can control her. John couldn't believe any mother would wish that, but Julie assured him her mother meant no harm. The important thing was that her IQ was higher than Alex's, even though he was the golden one and she was the troublemaker. He'd ask if Alex knew, and Julie shook her head. He must never know, she said. Promise me you'll never tell him. I promise, John said, although he couldn't understand why it was such a big deal. So what if Julie was smarter? That didn't mean Alex couldn't achieve his dreams. But the world had come to an end, and Alex was a grub bus driver, and Julie was dead. What difference did their IQs make now? John watched as some of the clavers gave Alex tips. It was nice of them, he thought. They had no obligation. Each time one did, Alex tipped his cap and said, Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. John grinned. Alex had always had good manners. Alex pulled the bus over to John's stop. John walked out to the front. See you later, he said. Alex nodded, and John got off. Mom's apartment was 3 blocks away. It was in a good neighborhood. As White Birch went, the houses had been converted into 2 and 4 family apartments. There were no drunks or corpses on the street, and the only guard John saw was more interested in flirting with a grubbler girl than protecting visiting clavers. Matt opened the door and gave John a hug. You look great, he said. You've grown. More muscle. Matt was thinner than John remembered, but it wasn't sickness then. It was leanness of someone forever in motion. You look great yourself, John said. How's Sly? Matt shrugged. She took the last miscarriage hard, he said, but she's back to work and we keep hoping. Give her my love, John said. He and Miranda found it wildly amusing that Syl was working as a domestic. When she and Matt had first married, Syl did nothing but stay in their bedroom while the rest of the family did all the cleaning and washing. Not that John had done much. Maybe that's why he was so comfortable having Val do the housework. He was used to others taking care of him. Mom grabbed John from Matt and hugged him even harder. She's lost weight, too, John noticed. It would be like Mom to eat less till Miranda could eat more. John wondered if Matt had noticed and spoken to Miranda about it. Miranda glowed. The last time John had seen her, he could hardly tell that she was pregnant. But now, there was no mistaking it. How are you feeling? He asked her. Fine, she said. I get a little tired at work sometimes, but otherwise I feel great. They even doubled my food allotment. I'm going to be the fattest person in White Birch. There's not a lot of competition, John said. I saw Alex. He drove my bus in. Miranda nodded. He's working 7 days a week, she said. He says he'll stop when the baby is born. I don't know. I won't be able to go back to work for a couple of months, so we won't have any salary. It's going to be hard getting by on just his and Mom's pay. We'll manage, Mom said. Look at us. My 3 children together, all grown, all beautiful. It's almost 4 years since everything happened. And we're still here, still together. Remember Crazy Shopping Day? Miranda asked. She and John burst out laughing at the memory of their elderly neighbor, Miss Nesbit, attacking some poor guy who tried to steal her shopping cart. Matt hadn't been there for Crazy Shopping Day, but soon they were reminiscing about their lives. John had learned not to think about the past any more than he had to, but it was wonderful talking about Christmases and birthdays and even fights that had grown up. Mom told how pleased Matt had been when John was born and he had a little brother, and how angry Miranda had been since she was convinced she was promised a sister of her own. What are you going to name the baby? John asked Miranda. Have you decided? Miranda laughed. It had better be a girl, she said. Alex and I keep fighting over boy names. If it's a girl, it's Leanna. The Lee is for Julie, and the Anna from Brianna. Miranda hadn't even known of Brianna's existence, John thought. Julie had told him about her, but when they began the long walk to Sexton, John had mentioned Bree to Miranda, only to have Miranda ask who he was talking about. Miranda and Alex had a terrible fight after that. Miranda enraged that Alex never told her he had a sister who died. That was the first of their 2 terrible fights. There was squabbles after that, but they all squabbled. The tip was a nightmare. It would have been impossible to stay in good spirits through those long, terrifying months. But the second fight Alex and Miranda had was something far beyond a squabble. No one could tell what the fight was about. But a day later, Alex left. Miranda said he was going to Texas to see Carlos and tell him of Julie's death. But John knew, they all knew, it was something more than that, something far deeper. John had actually been surprised when he learned Alex had mentioned return to Miranda in White Birch. By that point, John had slipped into Sexton, but he came for Alex and Miranda's wedding, and now, a matter of months, he'd been an uncle. As they sat down for lunch, John knew Mom was giving up supper for a couple of days, so the table was full. Even so, John noticed the food was nowhere near as good as he was used to in Sexton. He felt like he was seeing things through Sarah's eyes. The apartment Mom shared with Miranda and Alex seemed smaller, and John remembered, and grimier. The only heat from a coal stove in the kitchen. That's where they ate. But when they were through and went back to the living room, John felt a dank cold. He also noticed that at different moments, each one of them coughed. White Birch homes didn't come with air purification systems. John had been to his family's apartment maybe 10 times. He tried to remember if he had noticed the cold before, the dirty air, the just adequate food. Maybe he hadn't cared because it was so much better than what they had in Pennsylvania, where the 4 of them slept in the sunroom, all of them reared death from starvation. No, that wasn't true. John had never been that close to death. The others had given their food to him. He'd been hungry, and he'd been tired from the endless labor of chopping firewood, but they'd seen to it that he would survive. He looked at his mother, his brother and sister, and thought about how he alone was living in the enclave, with its well-heated homes, with breathable air and fresh vegetables, chicken and eggs. Before somehow it felt right. He was the youngest. He was the closest to Lisa. When they learned that one of the 3 passes Alex had given to Miranda would have to be used for Gabe, it made sense that John be the one to live with him and Lisa. They talked about it, Miranda holding on to the thought that Alex would return, had refused to move to Sexton. Mad and Sil had decided to make a home somewhere else. Mom said it wouldn't work for her and Lisa to live together. They got along remarkably well, given they'd been married to the same man, but enough was enough. So just as they'd given their food to John, they gave him a chance at a decent, comfortable life. The passes had been meant originally for Alex, Bree, and Julie. Julie would want you to have her pass, Lisa had said. Lisa had loved Julie and been closer to her family than any of them, except John. But John knew something Lisa didn't, something Lisa would never know. Julie might still be alive if it wasn't for him. Taking the pass was like stealing from the dead. Still, he took it. Miranda, Alex, who could have used the passes for themselves, were grubs now. Their baby was coming into a world of inequality at best, hunger, and cold at worst. "How's the teaching going, Mom?" Matt asked. Mom shook her head. "Sometimes I don't know why even try," she said. "I teach 3 classes, 50 kids in a class. Most of them don't care. They're killing time until they're 16 and can start working in Sexton. But there was this boy. I've never seen a kid that intelligent. Not book learning smart. He hasn't had the chance, but he grabs concepts faster than I could discuss them. Brilliant kid, I thought. Maybe he could get into Sexton University. There's no rule against it, and a boy that smart should be able to find sponsors," she sighed. "He left 2 weeks ago. He was nice enough to tell me, which is more than most of them do. His father got arrested and his mother's dead, and he has 2 younger brothers. The kid is 15. He's going to work in the mines. You don't have to be 16 to work in the mines. He'll send the money home to support his brothers until the older one is 16 and can go to work." "These are hard times, Mom," Matt said. "The important thing is not to quit." "I'm not quitting," she said, "just despairing." But she laughed, and John knew things were all right again. "The moon crash anniversary is a week from Monday," Miranda said. "I guess I should look at it as a day off, and I dread it." "Sunday night will be worse," Mom said. "Matt, will you be there on the road?" Matt shook his head. "I'll get home Saturday afternoon. I won't be going out until Tuesday." "Mom, do you remember the first anniversary?" Miranda asked. "When you and Sil and I had the crazy ceremony?" "What are you talking about?" John asked. Mom and Miranda had just finished telling the story of their ceremonial sacrifice to the moon goddess Diana when Alex came in. He hugged Miranda, and John shook Matt's hand. "You look tired," Matt said to him. Alex shrugged. "I am," he said. He sat next to Miranda and squeezed her hand. "But it's worth it. I've been waiting until you got home before I mentioned something," Matt said. "It involves you and Miranda, Mom, too." What is it?" Mom asked. "Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine, Mom," Matt said with a grin. "It's something good, or at least something to consider." "I'm listening," Alex said. "You know how much I travel," Matt said, "mostly from enclave to enclave, but I spend the nights in lots of different places. Keep this confidential, but there's a group of people who've set up their own community. Not an enclave, no government involvement, but not a place like White Birch either." "Not a grub town," Alex said. "I hate that word," Mom said. "Laura, that's what this is," Alex said. "You'd rather I call it a slave town?" "The point is, this new place wouldn't be any of those things," Matt said. "Remember communes? Kibbutz? That's what they're planning. They're starting small, but they figure to expand. Sil and I talking about joining, but we're not ready to make a commitment yet." "What will they do for food?" John asked. "Grow their own," Matt said. "They put together the money for 2 greenhouses, and they'll build from there. It's going to be a lot rougher than White Birch to start out, but they won't be dependent on the whim of some enclave. They'll be dependent." "Where do we find it?" Alex said. "I told them my brother-in-law is a mechanic," Matt said. "You'd pass the mechanic test, but you're not connected to enough to get to the promotion. A place like that is going to need mechanics. They love the fact that Miranda's pregnant. Actually, they're so pleased with the thought of you, too. They are willing to take Mom also." "That's very gracious of them," Mom said. "We know you're essential," Matt said, "but you don't bring a lot to skills of community like they're planning," Alex does. "What about me?" John asked. "I didn't ask," Matt said. "You're fine in Sexton." "What do you think, Alex?" Miranda asked. "I don't know," he said. "Carlos and I have been saving money for our own truck," he said to Matt. In another year, 18 months, we should be able to buy one. We figured that's the only way to go independent. But you stay in White Birch, Matt said. There are some pretty nice sections in White Birch, Alex replied, and there's no law against fixing our home, buying more food if we can't afford it, he grinned. Living the middle class life. We can't go anywhere until the baby is born, Miranda said, but if we decide to move, Mom, you'd have to come with us. I'd worry about you if you were here alone. Yes, Alex said. If we go, you come with us, Laura. I'll come too, John said. No, you won't, Mom said. Whatever happens, you're staying in Sexton. Why, John said. Mom stared at him. Look at your sister, John, and your brother and Alex, he said. Matt's a courier, Miranda works in greenhouses, and Alex is a bus driver. You call them grubs. Well, you're not going to be a grub. You'll graduate high school and college. That's the whole point of living in Sexton, so you can get an education, make something of yourself. What if I don't want to? John asked. I don't care, Mom said. In case you haven't noticed, none of us are doing what we want. We're doing what we have to, and we expect the same from you. Matt, John said, but Matt just shook his head. Listen, John, Alex said. You have a chance. You have a chance, Miranda, and I will never have. But it's not just us. It's Bree's chance and Julie's. You're the survivor, John, and the survivors have responsibilities. If you walk away from your chance, you make all that loss, all that sacrifice meaningless. All right, John said, but don't go without telling me. Let me know where I can find you. Of course we will, Miranda said. Then she laughed. The baby's kicking. Here, John, feel. She put his hand on her belly, and he felt the movement that promised life. Soccer player, John said, takes after me. For a moment they laughed, and for that moment they were a family again.